The Wild West, a land of myth and legend. But how much of what we know about the Wild West is really true? Well, truth be told, the legends don't always match reality. Even the deaths of some of the most infamous figures have been shrouded in myth. Join us as we journey through history, uncovering the true fates of 15 famous historical figures from the Wild West. Number 15, Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid, born Henry McCarty, was a notorious outlaw who left an indelible mark on the American Old West. His life was a whirlwind of gunslinging, horse thievery, and daring escapades that captured the imagination of the public. Despite his short stature, standing at just 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighing a mere 140 pounds, Billy the Kid's reputation loomed large over the frontier. Born in New York City in 1859, Billy's early life was marred by tragedy. His father died when he was just a child, leaving his mother to raise him and his brother alone. The family moved to Kansas, where Billy's mother remarried, but she too passed away when Billy was only 15 years old. It was then that Billy began his life of crime, starting with petty theft and quickly escalating to horse stealing and murder. Billy's involvement with the Regulators gang during the Lincoln County War in New Mexico would cement his place in outlaw lore. The conflict, which began as a business rivalry between two factions, soon turned violent. Billy, along with his fellow Regulators, found themselves at the center of the storm. In a series of bloody battles and shootouts, Billy earned a reputation as a fearless and deadly gunman. However, it was his daring escape from jail that truly captured the public's imagination. In April 1881, while awaiting his execution for the murder of Sheriff William Brady, Billy managed to slip out of his handcuffs, overpower his guards, and flee on horseback. Billy's run from the law would eventually come to an end at the hands of Sheriff Pat Garrett. Garrett, who had previously befriended Billy, was tasked with bringing the outlaw to justice. After months of pursuit, Garrett finally tracked Billy down to a ranch in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. In a dramatic confrontation, Garrett shot and killed Billy, who was only 21 at the time. Number 14, Wild Bill Hickok. James Butler Hickok, better known as Wild Bill, was a towering figure of the American Old West. Standing at an impressive 6 feet tall and weighing a solid 190 pounds, Hickok cut an imposing figure on the frontier. But it was his skill with a gun and his larger-than-life personality that truly set him apart. Born in Illinois in 1837, Hickok's early life was unremarkable. He worked as a farmhand and a stagecoach driver before finding his calling as a lawman. In the early 1860s, Hickok served as a scout for the Union Army during the Civil War, where he earned a reputation for bravery and marksmanship. After the war, Hickok's legend began to grow. He worked as a deputy U.S. Marshal in Kansas and Nebraska, where he was involved in several high-profile shootouts. In one famous incident, Hickok single-handedly took on a gang of outlaws, killing 3 and wounding 2 others. His exploits were soon the stuff of dime novels and newspaper articles, which portrayed him as a fearless lawman and a master gunfighter. But Hickok wasn't just a gunslinger. He was also a skilled gambler and a bit of a dandy, known for his love of fine clothes and his trademark long hair and mustache. His distinctive appearance, coupled with his reputation as a deadly shot, made him an instant celebrity wherever he went. Tragically, it was Hickok's fame that would ultimately lead to his demise. In August 1876, while playing poker at a saloon in Deadwood, South Dakota, Hickok was shot in the back of the head by a young drifter named Jack McCall. The motive for the murder remains unclear, but some believe that McCall was seeking to make a name for himself by killing the famous Wild Bill. At the time of his death, Hickok was holding a pair of black aces and a pair of black eights, a combination that has since become known as the dead man's hand. The hand has become a symbol of the lawlessness and violence of the Old West and the harsh realities of life on the frontier. Number 13, the Rufus Buck Gang. In the waning years of the 19th century, the American West was a land of opportunity and danger, a place where fortunes could be made and lives could be lost in the blink of an eye. It was in this world that the Rufus Buck Gang would rise to infamy, their brief but brutal reign of terror leaving an indelible mark on the history of the frontier. Led by Rufus Buck, a young man of Creek Indian and African American descent, the gang consisted of 4 other members: Lewis Davis, Sam Sampson, Mayoma July, and Lucky Davis. Together, they cut a swath of violence and destruction across the Oklahoma and Arkansas territories, robbing stores and ranches and killing anyone who stood in their way. The gang's most notorious crime occurred on July 30th, 1895, when they attacked a group of U.S. deputy marshals near Muskogee, Oklahoma. In the ensuing gunfight, the gang killed 2 of the lawmen and wounded several others before fleeing into the wilderness. The manhunt that followed was one of the largest in American history, involving hundreds of lawmen and civilian volunteers. In the end, the Rufus Buck Gang was captured and brought to trial before the notorious hanging judge, Isaac Parker. All 5 gang members were convicted and sentenced to death, their fate sealed by the overwhelming evidence against them. On July 1st, 1896, they were hanged simultaneously from a single gallows, their deaths marking the end of one of the most notorious chapters in the history of the American West. Number 12. Blackjack Ketchum. In the lawless expanse of the Wild West, train robbery emerged as a daring and lucrative endeavor, capturing the imaginations of both criminals and the public alike. Amidst this tumultuous era, one name rose above the rest in the annals of train robbery infamy: Blackjack Ketchum. Born Thomas Edward Ketchum in 1863, Blackjack's path toward notoriety began innocuously enough. However, as he delved deeper into the world of crime, his ambitions grew, eventually leading him to orchestrate a series of daring train heists that would cement his place in Wild West lore. Standing at a formidable 6 feet tall and weighing a muscular 180 pounds, Blackjack cut an imposing figure. He began his criminal career as a cattle rustler before turning his attention to the railroads, where the promise of easy money and the thrill of the heist proved irresistible. Ketchum's most notorious crime occurred in 1899, when he and his gang held up the Colorado and Southern Railway near Folsom, New Mexico. The robbery was a brutal affair, with the gang dynamiting the safe and engaging in a fierce gunfight with the train's crew. When the smoke cleared, one of the crew members lay dead, and Blackjack had a bullet in his arm. The law finally caught up with Blackjack in 1901, and he was sentenced to death by hanging. On April 26th of that year, he mounted the scaffold in Clayton, New Mexico, in what would be one of the last public executions in the United States. In a grim twist of fate, the hanging was botched, and Blackjack was decapitated by the force of the drop. He was also the only person who suffered capital punishment for the offense of felonious assault upon a railway train in the state of New Mexico. Number 11. Belle Starr. Belle Starr, born Myra Maybelle Shirley, was a notorious figure of the American Old West, known more for her associations with outlaws than for her own criminal exploits. Born in Missouri in 1848, Belle was the daughter of a respected farmer and the sister of a Confederate guerrilla leader. It was through these family connections that she first became entangled with the outlaw world. In 1866, at the age of 18, Belle married Jim Reed, a former Confederate soldier turned outlaw. The couple had 2 children together, but their marriage was marked by violence and instability. In 1874, Reed was killed in a gunfight with a deputy sheriff, leaving Belle to fend for herself and her children. That's when Belle turned to a life of crime. She was arrested and convicted of horse theft, serving a 9-month sentence in prison. Upon her release, she returned to the outlaw life, this time taking up with a series of notorious criminals, including Cole Younger and Sam Starr. Belle's second marriage to Sam Starr was no less tumultuous than her first. The couple lived on a ranch in Oklahoma, where they were known to harbor fugitives and engage in various criminal activities. In 1886, Sam Starr was killed in a shootout with a tribal police officer, once again leaving Belle on her own. Despite her associations with outlaws, Belle herself was never conclusively linked to any major crimes. In 1889, Belle's own life came to a violent end. She was shot in the back and killed while riding home from a neighbor's house. The identity of her killer remains unknown to this day, though speculation has long swirled around her own son, Ed Reed, who had a tumultuous relationship with his mother. Number 10. Butch Cassidy. Butch Cassidy, born Robert Leroy Parker, was a notorious outlaw and leader of the Wild Bunch Gang, which terrorized the American West in the late 19th century. Born in Utah in 1866, Cassidy was the son of a Mormon farmer who had immigrated from England. As a young man, Cassidy worked as a cowboy and a ranch hand, but he soon turned to a life of crime. In the early 1890s, Cassidy formed the Wild Bunch Gang, which included such infamous outlaws as the Sundance Kid, Harvey Logan, and Ben Kilpatrick. The gang was known for their daring train and bank robberies, which they carried out with military precision. They would spend months planning each heist, studying the terrain and the movements of their targets, and then strike with lightning speed and efficiency. One of the Wild Bunch's most famous robberies was the Castle Gate robbery in 1897, in which they made off with over $7,000 in cash and gold, equivalent to over $230,000 today. The gang's exploits soon made them the most wanted men in the West, with Pinkerton detectives and posses hot on their trail. In 1901, with the net closing in, Cassidy and the Sundance Kid decided to flee to South America. They settled in Argentina, where they bought a ranch and tried to go straight. But old habits die hard, and the two were soon back to their outlaw ways. In 1908, the Bolivian cavalry tracked down Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in a small village in the Andes. A fierce gun battle ensued, and when the smoke cleared, 2 bodies were found. One was riddled with bullets, the other had a single shot to the head. The bodies were identified as Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but rumors soon began to circulate that the two had somehow managed to escape. Over the years, numerous sightings of Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were reported throughout the American West and South America. Some claimed to have seen them living quiet lives as ranchers, while others swore they had died in the shootout in Bolivia. The truth remains a mystery to this day. Number 9. Jesse James, Jesse Woodson. James was one of the most notorious outlaws of the American Old West, a man whose name has become synonymous with daring bank and train robberies. Born in Missouri in 1847, James was the son of a Baptist minister and a slave-owning farmer. As a young man, he joined a Confederate guerrilla unit during the Civil War, where he gained a reputation for brutality and ruthlessness. After the war, James and his brother Frank turned to a life of crime, forming the James Younger Gang with a group of former Confederate soldiers. The gang quickly gained notoriety for their bold and audacious robberies, which targeted banks, stagecoaches, and trains across the Midwest. One of the gang's most famous robberies was the Gads Hill train robbery in 1874, in which they made off with over $15,000 in cash and valuables. The robbery made headlines across the country and cemented Jesse James's reputation as a daring and elusive outlaw. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, the James Younger Gang managed to evade capture for years. They would often split up and lay low after a robbery, only to regroup and strike again when the heat had died down. James himself was a master of disguise and misdirection, often planting false leads and red herrings to throw off his pursuers. But the gang's luck couldn't last forever. In 1876, they attempted to rob a bank in Northfield, Minnesota, but were met with fierce resistance from the townspeople. The robbery was a disaster, with several gang members killed or captured. James and his brother Frank managed to escape, but the gang was effectively finished. In the years that followed, James continued to rob and steal, but his luck was running out. In 1882, he was living under an assumed name in St. Joseph, Missouri, when he was shot and killed by a member of his own gang, Robert Ford. Ford had been secretly working with the authorities to bring James to justice, and he saw his chance when James turned his back to adjust a picture on the wall. Number 8. Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp was a legendary lawman of the American Old West, best known for his role in the famous gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona. Born in Illinois in 1848, Earp was the son of a farmer and a schoolteacher. As a young man, he worked as a stagecoach driver and a buffalo hunter before turning to law enforcement. Earp's career as a lawman began in the 1870s when he served as a police officer in Wichita and Dodge City, Kansas. He quickly gained a reputation as a tough and fearless lawman, known for his quick draw and his willingness to take on dangerous criminals. In 1879, Earp moved to Tombstone, Arizona, where he joined his brothers Virgil and Morgan as a deputy sheriff. The town was a hotbed of crime and violence, with rival gangs vying for control of the lucrative silver mines in the area. It was in Tombstone that Earp would face his greatest challenge. On October 26, 1881, he and his brothers, along with their friend Doc Holliday, confronted a group of outlaws known as the Cowboys in a narrow alley behind the OK Corral. The ensuing gunfight, which lasted just 30 seconds, left 3 cowboys dead and several others wounded. Earp and his brothers emerged unscathed, but the incident would forever cement their place in Western lore. Despite his success in Tombstone, Earp's later years were marked by controversy and tragedy. In 1882, his brother Morgan was assassinated by a group of cowboys seeking revenge for the OK Corral gunfight. Earp and his remaining brothers embarked on a bloody vendetta ride, tracking down and killing several of the cowboys responsible for Morgan's death. In the years that followed, Earp moved around the West, working as a gambler and a saloon keeper. He eventually settled in Los Angeles, where he became a consultant for Western movies in the early days of Hollywood. Wyatt Earp died in 1929 at the age of 80, leaving behind a legacy that has only grown in the decades since. Number 7. Buffalo Bill Cody, William Frederick, Buffalo Bill. Cody was a larger-than-life figure of the American Old West, a man who helped to shape the popular image of the frontier in the late 19th century. Born in Iowa in 1846, Cody was the son of a farmer who had moved west in search of a better life. As a young man, Cody worked as a Pony Express rider, a stagecoach driver, and a scout for the U.S. Army. But it was his buffalo hunter skills that would earn him his famous nickname. In the 1860s and 70s, the Kansas Pacific Railroad hired Cody to supply meat for their workers. He became known as one of the most skilled and prolific buffalo hunters on the plains, reportedly killing over 4,000 buffalo in a single year. Cody's fame as a hunter soon spread, and he began to capitalize on his reputation by staging Wild West shows. These shows, which featured trick riding, sharpshooting, and reenactments of famous frontier battles, were a sensation in the United States and Europe. Cody's shows helped popularize the image of the American cowboy and the Wild West, and they made him one of the most famous men in the world. He died in 1917 and was buried atop Lookout Mountain in Colorado, overlooking the Great Plains that had been his home for so much of his life. But even in death, Cody's story was not without its twists. Due to heavy snowfall, his body had to be stored in a Denver mortuary for 6 months before it could be buried. During that time, his body was reportedly embalmed 6 times to preserve it for the long journey to its final resting place. Number 6. Bat Masterson. Born in Canada in 1853, Bat Masterson's life was a tapestry woven with threads of adventure, law enforcement, and journalism. Standing at an impressive 6 feet tall and weighing a solid 180 pounds, Masterson cut an imposing figure in the Wild West. His journey began as a buffalo hunter, where he honed his sharpshooting skills and earned a reputation as a formidable marksman. Masterson's path took a turn when he met the legendary Wyatt Earp. Recognizing Masterson's potential, Earp convinced him to join the ranks of law enforcement in Dodge City, Kansas. Masterson accepted the challenge, driven by a desire to bring order to the chaotic frontier town. He served as a sheriff, his tenure marked by both triumphs and tragedies, including the heartbreaking loss of his brother Ed, who was killed in the line of duty. As the years passed, Masterson grew weary of the lawlessness that plagued the West. At the age of 49, he sought a new chapter in his life, one that would allow him to leave behind the violence and chaos. With his wife by his side, Masterson made his way to New York City, where he embarked on a career as a journalist and sports columnist. Masterson's articles were renowned for their wit, insight, and vivid storytelling. He brought the spirit of the Wild West to the pages of his columns, captivating readers with tales of his adventures and the colorful characters he encountered. His writing style was as sharp as his shooting, and he quickly gained a loyal following among sports enthusiasts and those fascinated by the American frontier. Tragically, Masterson's life was cut short in 1921 when he suffered a fatal heart attack at his newspaper desk. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. This is how Wild West figures actually died. Some met their end at the wrong end of a barrel, some succumbed to disease, some were apprehended by the law, and others fell victim to brutal rivalries. According to accounts, one young gunslinger from Montana turned to gunfighting out of desperation, only to develop a taste for it. Within a year, he had accumulated numerous enemies and found himself pursued by rival gangs. Captured by one such gang, he was first tortured, then confined to a small wooden box, with only his head exposed for breathing. Tragically, he perished in that box. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments. Number 5. Calamity Jane, born Martha. Jane Canary in 1852, Calamity Jane's life was a wild ride through the untamed frontier of the American West. Standing at a modest 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighing around 120 pounds, she may not have been an imposing figure, but her spirit was as big as the wide-open plains she called home. Calamity Jane's unconventional life began early when she started dressing as a man and working for the Pony Express. Her reasons for this choice remain a mystery, but some speculate that it allowed her to navigate the rough-and-tumble world of the frontier more easily. There are also whispers that she may have engaged in prostitution to make ends meet, adding to the enigma surrounding her life. Her reputation as a sharpshooter and skilled horsewoman caught the eye of Buffalo Bill Cody, who invited her to join his famous Wild West show. Calamity Jane's performances showcased her incredible marksmanship and daring feats on horseback, captivating audiences across the country. However, beneath the bravado, Calamity Jane's life was marked by tragedy and hardship. She struggled with alcoholism for years, a battle that would ultimately claim her life at age 51. According to legend, her dying wish was to be buried next to her longtime friend and drinking companion, Wild Bill Hickok. Number 4. Doc Holliday. John Henry. Doc Holliday's life was a paradox, a man whose name would become synonymous with the lawless frontier, yet whose death would serve as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life in the face of an indiscriminate killer. Born in Georgia in 1851, Holliday's early life gave little indication of the notorious figure he would become. Standing at a lean 6 feet tall and weighing around 160 pounds, Holliday's physical stature was unremarkable. However, his keen intellect and steady hands led him to pursue a career in dentistry, a path that would be forever altered by a fateful diagnosis of tuberculosis. Faced with the grim realities of his condition, Holliday sought solace in the dry, arid climate of the American West. It was in the frontier towns of the West that Holliday's legend would be forged. He quickly earned a reputation as a skilled gambler and a deadly gunfighter, his quick wit and steady nerves making him a formidable opponent at the card table and in the streets. His friendship with Wyatt Earp, forged in the crucible of the frontier, would become the stuff of legend, immortalized in countless books and films. Yet, even as Holliday's legend grew, his health continued to deteriorate. Tuberculosis, the silent killer that had driven him westward, slowly consumed his lungs, leaving him weakened and emaciated. Despite his declining health, Holliday refused to back down from a fight, his courage and determination earning him a place in the annals of Western history. In the end, it was tuberculosis, not a bullet, that claimed Doc Holliday's life. He died in a Colorado sanitarium in 1887, his once powerful frame ravaged by the disease. Number 3. Davey Crockett. Born in Tennessee in 1786, Davey Crockett stood a modest 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed around 150 pounds. While his physical stature may have been unremarkable compared to the rugged figures often associated with the Wild West, his larger-than-life personality, unwavering spirit, and legendary exploits would cement his place as an enduring symbol of the American frontier. Crockett's early life was marked by hardship and adventure. He received little formal education, but his skills as a hunter and trapper were unparalleled. His reputation as a frontiersman grew, and he soon found himself drawn into the political arena, serving as a member of the Tennessee state legislature and later as a U.S. congressman. However, it was Crockett's participation in the Texas Revolution that would cement his place in American history. In 1836, he joined a group of Texan defenders at the Alamo, a small mission in San Antonio that had become a symbol of resistance against the Mexican army. For 13 days, Crockett and his fellow defenders held out against overwhelming odds, their bravery and sacrifice becoming the stuff of legend. The exact circumstances of Crockett's death at the Alamo remain a matter of debate. Some accounts suggest that he died fighting, his trusty long rifle in hand, while others claim that he was one of a handful of survivors who were captured and executed by the Mexican army. Regardless of the truth, Crockett's death at the Alamo has become a symbol of the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom and independence. Number 2. Annie Oakley. Born Phoebe Ann Mosey in 1860, Annie Oakley's life was a remarkable journey that took her from the backwoods of Ohio to the bright lights of the world stage. Standing at just 5 feet tall and weighing a mere 100 pounds, Oakley's diminutive stature belied her incredible talent and indomitable spirit. Oakley's path to fame began when she was just 15. In a twist of fate that would change her life forever, she entered a shooting contest against Frank Butler, a renowned marksman. Oakley emerged victorious, outshooting Butler and winning his heart in the process. The two soon married and began a partnership that would last a lifetime. Oakley's exceptional marksmanship caught the attention of Buffalo Bill Cody, who invited her to join his Wild West show. She quickly became a star attraction, dazzling audiences with her incredible feats of shooting prowess. Oakley could shoot cigarettes out of her husband's mouth, split a playing card edge-on from 30 paces, and even shoot the thin edge of a dime tossed into the air. Throughout her career, Oakley used her platform to champion women's rights and challenge traditional gender roles. She taught thousands of women how to shoot, empowering them to defend themselves in a world that was often hostile to their gender. Sadly, Oakley's life was cut short by a tragic illness. In 1926, she contracted pernicious anemia, a condition that would claim her life at the age of 66. Just 18 days later, her beloved husband Frank Butler passed away, some say of a broken heart. The two were buried side by side in Oakley's family plot, their love story etched into the annals of American history. Number 1. Henry Plummer. Henry Plummer was an enigma, a man whose life would be forever intertwined with whispers of both admiration and condemnation. Born in Maine in 1832, Plummer's early years offered no foreshadowing of the notoriety that awaited him. A commanding figure, standing 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighing around 200 pounds, Plummer possessed a presence that was as imposing as his intellect was keen and his charm undeniable. Plummer's path to infamy began in the gold fields of California, where he worked as a miner before turning to a life of crime. He was known as a skilled gunfighter and a ruthless enforcer, his reputation growing with each passing year. In 1836, he made his way to the Montana Territory, where he was elected sheriff of Bannock, a lawless mining town rife with crime and corruption. It was during his tenure as sheriff that Plummer's true nature would be called into question. Some accounts paint him as a dedicated lawman who worked tirelessly to bring order to the chaos of the frontier. Others, however, claim that he was a criminal mastermind who used his position to further his own nefarious ends, leading a secret gang of outlaws known as the Innocents. Regardless of the truth, Plummer's fate was sealed in 1864 when a mob of vigilantes took the law into their own hands. Convinced that Plummer was a murderer and a thief, they stormed the jail where he was being held and hanged him from the gallows, along with 2 of his alleged accomplices. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.